Ginger Rios was a young entertainer that performed with a group called the Salsa Machine in Las Vegas, Nevada. Ginger's mother, Denise Rios, described her daughter as ambitious, with a keen intelligence and determination for reaching her goals. Denise Rios once said of her daughter, quote, "She said to me once, 'I'm going to be Miss Las Vegas one day.'" Ginger wanted to create her own musical group and have her own show in Vegas. She was also taking professional voice lessons. In 1996, she met Mark Hollinger, and soon the two would tie the knot. Mark was an introverted divorcee and was 14 years older than Ginger at the time of their marriage. On April 4th, 1997, the couple arrived at the parking lot of a shopping center located at 3507 Maryland Parkway, just a short distance from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas campus. Their purpose was to visit the Spycraft store to acquire a book on improving their credit reports. Ginger and her husband had moved into a home the day before on a lease-to-own plan and wanted to clear their credit so that they would be approved for a loan. The Spycraft store sold a variety of listening devices, surveillance equipment, and books. Ginger ventured into the store to make the purchase, leaving her husband Mark in the car. Mark noted that Ginger carried only her wallet with her, leaving her purse and other belongings behind in the vehicle. This was the last time that Mark would ever see her alive. Mark waited anxiously as the time went by, and Ginger still had not returned. After a while, he decided to look for her and went into the store. The couple working there told him that Ginger had already purchased her book and had left. Even though he felt like something was wrong with the way that they had spoke, Mark thanked them and kept on searching for his wife. He walked around the shopping center looking for her, returning just a few minutes later. He again asked the couple if they had remembered seeing his wife. They repeated only what they had said previously. Mark then called his father-in-law, George, and informed him that Ginger had disappeared. George, a pragmatic man, reassured Mark, suggesting Ginger might have simply wandered off to another store and would return soon. However, as Ginger failed to reappear, Mark and George decided to revisit the Spycraft store later that night in an attempt to access the surveillance footage, hoping to glean insights into Ginger's actions prior to her disappearance. Unfortunately, upon their arrival, they found the doors locked and a closed sign in the window. However, looking around, he saw the couple who Mark had talked to earlier in the day. The couple was standing next to a van holding a baby in the parking lot. Mark approached them, informing them of his wife's disappearance and requesting access to their CCTV footage. The couple said they were in a hurry, but the man identifying himself as the owner of the shop, John Fowlers, assured Mark that they would review the footage the following Monday. Mark and George thanked the Flowers and continued their search for Ginger. However, nothing would be uncovered. On April 6th, Mark filed a missing persons report with the Las Vegas police. The police started their investigation immediately. Her family did not believe she would have left voluntarily, as she dedicated her life to her career. Her family said she was excited about moving into her new house and was looking forward to starting a new chapter in her life. Moreover, her paycheck and her bank accounts remained untouched. Ginger's family initially ruled Mark out as a suspect. However, due to the fact that the spouse is the first suspect in any police inquiry, Mark was investigated heavily. During the investigation, the police uncovered that Ginger and Mark's marriage was not as harmonious as they had initially portrayed. In fact, Ginger had spent some time staying at a hotel away from Mark. Police questioned Mark about her disappearance, however, he denied anything to do with it. He said he adored Ginger, and despite the occasional challenges in their new marriage, they were essentially happy. However, Mark would soon become a suspect after a patrol officer found his car burning in a parking lot, with Mark nowhere to be found. Police suspected he may have been trying to destroy evidence, and his car was taken for forensic examination. Meanwhile, the police questioned him about the vehicle. Mark claimed that while driving home from work, his car had overheated and exploded into flames. He said he then decided to leave it and walk home. Mark's car was forensically tested, but due to the fire, nothing would be found, and with no evidence connecting him to her disappearance, Mark was officially cleared. Police then decided to pay a visit to the Spy store, the last place where Ginger was seen alive. Police called the owner of the store, John Flowers, and asked him about the CCTV footage from the day Ginger disappeared. Flowers told the detective that he was at his other store in Phoenix and would return soon. Investigators then decided to pay a visit to the storefront. Detectives did not notice anything unusual in the front part of the store, but when they entered the back room, they were immediately met with a strong smell of bleach. They also noticed a spot of dried blood on one of the walls. The blood was collected and preserved. However, the sample was so minute it could not be tested. Investigators questioned Flowers, and he told police that his dog had soiled the storage room, forcing him to use heavy-duty chemicals to clean up the mess. He claimed the blood must have also come from the dog. Detectives found the story plausible. When asked about Ginger, Flowers claimed that she had walked into his store, had stopped at the book racks, had gone to the checkout counter, had purchased 2 books, and then had walked out of the store. He claims that she was seen on surveillance footage while in the store. However, Flowers said that he did not keep a copy of that tape, and it had since been recorded over. The owner of the spy store also said that he had a cash register receipt, dated and stamped at the time that Ginger was in the store. However, he could not produce it when asked by investigators. Despite this, investigators did not have any evidence linking him to Ginger's disappearance. The police decided to explore Ginger's profession as a stage performer, which often drew unwelcome attention from male admirers. Detectives speculated about the possibility of her being targeted by a stalker. However, this line of inquiry proved fruitless, and the investigation went nowhere. 1 month following Ginger's disappearance, on May 5th, a hunter stumbled upon the body of a woman abandoned in the Arizona desert. The victim was unclothed and without any form of identification. Notably, she wore 2 rings, one adorned with 3 gems and the other featuring either the letter W or M. Given that Ginger did not possess such jewelry, the identity of the woman remained a mystery. The ring's photos were released by the local media. However, she could not be identified, and both cases remained unsolved. 3 months later, a federal agent called the investigating detective in Ginger's case from Phoenix, Arizona. The federal agent said that he had uncovered a lead that might be helpful in Ginger's disappearance. He said that John Flowers was on the run after being investigated for selling illegal listening devices, and when police questioned his wife, Cheryl Flowers, she revealed that she knew what had happened to Ginger Rios. Detectives immediately flew to Phoenix to question her. Cheryl told detectives that she hadn't initially told the truth because she was terrified of her husband, but now that he was on the run, she felt safe enough to tell them the truth about Ginger's disappearance. She recalled that on that day, she and her husband, along with their baby, had been at the front of the store when Ginger entered. John had immediately instructed his wife to retrieve some film for their camera. She found the request unusual, but John often asked her to do such unusual things, so she did not question him. She left John alone with the young woman, who happened to be the sole customer in the store at that time. Upon her return, 10 minutes later, Ginger was gone. Ginger's concerned husband entered the store just after John's wife did, inquiring about Ginger. Cheryl remained silent as her husband informed the visibly distressed man that Ginger had been present but had already left the store. She remembered that after Mark left, John looked up at her in fear and told her, quote, "I've done something very bad. Whatever you do not go into the back rooms." However, curiosity took the better of her, and eventually she peeked inside the back room. To her horror, she saw Ginger's body lying on the floor in a pool of blood. As she stood there, processing the scene, John suddenly appeared behind her, gripping her tightly. He warned her to never breathe a word of what she had witnessed, and said that if she cared about her own life and the safety of her child, she would keep silent. He told her that Ginger had come into the store and that he had punched her, kicked her, and then killed her. He says this was in response to her getting into his face, saying that he, quote, snapped. John never gave Cheryl a rational reason as to why he killed Ginger. After closing up the shop for the remainder of the day, Cheryl says John got to work disposing of the evidence. An employee, at John's request, bought large plastic garbage bags, and John locked himself in the back of the store with them. Later, when an employee went to the back of the store, there was bleach all over the floor. John explained that he had been cleaning up after his dog. Cheryl said that Ginger's body was wrapped in plastic garbage bags. Later that day, when Mark and George came looking for Ginger, Cheryl says that they had no idea her body was concealed in those garbage bags in the rear of the van parked just by the spy shop. John then traveled to Arizona with his wife and their infant child, where he later buried Ginger's body in concrete out in the desert. When police found the unidentified body of a young woman in the desert a month later, assuming that it was Ginger, John had gone into hiding. Now that John was on the run, Cheryl had finally summoned the courage to confide in the detective about Ginger's true whereabouts. Cheryl took the detective to the exact place where Ginger's body was buried in exchange for full immunity. Cheryl was surprised to find the decomposing remains in the concrete tomb, as she, like her husband, had thought the unidentified girl found earlier had been Ginger Rios. These remains were positively identified as belonging to Ginger Rios. The other body found in a similar area remained unidentified. Detectives, now armed with a search warrant for the spy store, conducted a full-scale search. Inside the storeroom, traces of blood were found, and eventually those were positively matched to Ginger. John Flowers was finally arrested by U.S. Customs officials in L.A. in August of 1997. While this arrest was for an unrelated charge of assaulting a federal officer, his capture ignited a chain reaction of events which allowed him to later be extradited to Nevada, where he was charged for the murder of Ginger Rios. When questioned, he confessed to the murder. After his arrest, police learned that John Flowers was in reality a fugitive named Craig Leslie Jacobson. Jacobson had a long criminal history involving burglary and counterfeiting. He had fled to Florida after being accused of committing battery on a peace officer and had assumed the name John Flowers. He still owned 3 spycraft stores in the Southwest when he was arrested. After the con man, once known as Jacobson, was arrested, a teenager came forward and told detectives that she had almost faced the same fate as Ginger at the hands of John Flowers, aka Craig Jacobson. She recalled that 2 months before the murder of Ginger, she'd visited the spycraft store. She said that when she entered, the owner came over and grabbed her and threw her over his shoulder. She recalls that he started carrying her to the back room. However, moments later, another customer came in, which spooked the owner, allowing her to escape. She said that she was afraid to tell anyone, as she thought no one would believe her. Soon, a man by the name of Bernard McLaughlin also came forward. He told police that he'd worked with Jacobson for 4 months. He said Jacobson passed himself off as a government employee with ties to the FBI, the CIA, and the DEA. Jacobson had employed McLaughlin to do one thing: secretly photograph dark-haired women, many of whom worked in casinos and hotels. In the short time that Bernard knew Jacobson, he said that he earned $900 to $1,000 for taking the pictures and recording the voices. He recalled that Jacobson always paid him with crisp new $20 and $50 bills. Though he traveled from Phoenix to Lake Havasu to Gila Bend, Arizona, it was in Las Vegas, McLaughlin said, where he took most of the photos. McLaughlin also told police that Jacobson had boasted to him about leaving bodies in the desert. Jacobson was initially incarcerated at a facility for the mentally ill. He was held with similar offenders while being assessed for competency to stand trial. Jacobson had previously been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he made bizarre claims to investigators, such as verbalizing concerns that, quote, "the Russians are after me." While in prison, he even attempted suicide. Prosecutors suspected him of feigning mental illness in order to pursue an insanity defense. Initially seeking the death penalty, they eventually pursued a plea deal due to concerns that a recent Nevada Supreme Court decision might facilitate a second-degree murder conviction, which could have led to parole eligibility in just 10 years. By pleading guilty to murder, Jacobson faced a minimum of 25 years in prison. Jacobson accepted the plea deal. Eventually, his plea was amended to guilty by reason of insanity at the defendant's request. Jacobson was convicted of murder after not contesting the charges and was sentenced to 20 years in prison with the possibility of parole. Investigators also questioned him about the unidentified woman found in Las Vegas. Jacobson confirmed that Ginger was not his first victim. He claimed to have murdered another woman named Mary Stoddard. He recalled that her father had been a chiropractor and claimed that he killed the victim at the Lake Mead National Recreation Area and later transported her body to the Arizona desert. However, police later found that the real Mary Stoddard was still alive and well. The Jane Doe found in the desert would remain unidentified for the next few years. Finally, in 2010, she would be identified as 15-year-old Christina Marie Martinez. It was found that 7 days before her murder, Martinez had disappeared on May 3, 1997, on her way to a local laundromat. The teenager had been a resident of a group home that had been situated directly across the street from Spycraft's Phoenix store. Sadly, as the girl had a troubled past and was prone to running away, no one had ever reported her missing. The ring's M, detectives would learn, stood for Martinez. In 2014, after many procedural obstacles, Jacobson was formally charged with Christina's abduction and subsequent murder. The following year, he was extradited from Nevada to Arizona to face trial. In July of 2016, Jacobson was declared unfit to stand trial. A Phoenix judge, weary of Jacobson's antics, accused him of feigning mental illness to evade justice, setting a new court date for November. However, that date came and went. Currently, as of 2024, Jacobson remains in custody as authorities debate his competency. If you like what we do and want to see more, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much to our patrons. If you would like to support this channel, you can visit the link in our bio below.